Barrio 18, also known as the 18th Street Gang, is one of the largest and most violent transnational street gangs in the world, with origins dating back to 1960s Los Angeles, where it emerged from Mexican-American neighborhoods before becoming one of the first truly multi-ethnic street gangs in the United States, openly recruiting members from different backgrounds, including Central American immigrants who later played a major role in its expansion.
Unlike many gangs that began as small neighborhood groups, Barrio 18 grew rapidly due to its aggressive recruitment, loose internal structure, and willingness to absorb rival street groups, eventually developing a reputation for extreme violence, territorial control, and internal discipline enforced through fear. The gang's influence expanded dramatically during the 1980s and 1990s when U.S. deportation policies sent thousands of convicted gang members to El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico, countries struggling with post-war instability, weak institutions, poverty, and limited law enforcement capacity, creating ideal conditions for the gang to entrench itself deeply in local communities.
Barrio 18 operates through a decentralized network of semi-autonomous local cliques, each controlling specific neighborhoods or territories while following shared rules, symbols, tattoos, hand signs, and a strict internal code that prioritizes loyalty, obedience, and retaliation against enemies or perceived traitors. Over time, the gang fractured into two major rival factions, Barrio 18 Revolucionarios and Barrio 18 Sureños, a split that intensified internal violence and competition for territory, particularly in El Salvador, where clashes between these factions and their primary rival, Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13, contributed to some of the highest homicide rates in the world during the 2000s and 2010s. Barrio 18 finances its operations through a wide range of criminal activities, most notably extortion, commonly known as renta, targeting small businesses, street vendors, public transportation workers, and even residents within territories it controls, as well as drug distribution, armed robbery, weapons trafficking, human smuggling, and contract killings.
In many Central American communities, the gang historically exercised near total control over daily life, enforcing curfews, restricting movement, deciding who could enter or leave neighborhoods, and using violence, intimidation, and public punishment to silence resistance and maintain dominance. A critical factor in Barrio 18's resilience has been its prison-based command structure, where incarcerated leaders continue to issue orders, coordinate crimes, collect extortion payments, and manage disputes outside prison walls through visitors, intermediaries, and corruption, effectively transforming prisons into operational headquarters rather than centers of rehabilitation. The gang is notorious for its brutality, using violence not only as a means of generating profit, but also as a strategic tool to build fear, reputation, and internal discipline, with harsh punishments, including beatings and executions, used against members who disobey orders, cooperate with authorities, or violate gang rules. Governments across the region, particularly in El Salvador, classify Barrio 18 as a terrorist or transnational criminal organization, and under President Nayib Bukele, the El Salvadoran government launched an unprecedented crackdown beginning in 2022, declaring a state of exception that led to the mass arrest of tens of thousands of suspected gang members, including large numbers linked to Barrio 18, many of whom were transferred to high-security prisons such as CICAT, severely weakening the gang's visible street presence and disrupting its traditional extortion networks. Supporters of these measures argue they restored public safety, reduced violence, and freed communities from decades of gang domination, while critics warn of human rights violations, wrongful detentions, lack of due process, and the long-term consequences of concentrating large numbers of detainees in harsh prison conditions. Despite these crackdowns, Barrio 18 has not completely disappeared. Instead, it has adapted by reducing its public profile, fragmenting into smaller cells, and relying on regional and transnational connections to survive under pressure. Today, Barrio 18 stands as a powerful example of how migration, social exclusion, weak institutions, and punitive prison systems can transform a street gang into a long-lasting transnational criminal network, leaving deep social, economic, and psychological scars on the communities it once controlled, and serving as a cautionary tale for governments worldwide about the long-term consequences of violence-driven crime and failed integration policies.